See, this kind of relief of tension with something humor, with some comedy, some humor, is something I've tried to do throughout the whole movie. And each time, because I knew that this movie was going to be so full of action that if I didn't release the tension once in a while or after almost every scene, you would be really, audience would be exhausted. Again, introduction of the main character. Most movies, you start, when the lead character comes in, you start people. Now, in general, you start with showing close-ups of people as they enter a room or a door. But I wanted to have a little bit more spectacular introduction of Keanu's character, and that's why this shot in the car as it jumps over the camera, lands right in front of it, and keeps going. It's like sets a little bit where his character stands for, his roughness, his like being different than the regular cop. The whole movie is basically shot handheld. I mean, not handheld in a rough way, but handheld like like the camera happened to be there. I wanted to give it kind of a documentary look without being like disruptive, shaky or so. But it wanted to be like, this just happened. This could have happened, and people just happened to be there. And this is the way how it developed. I like this whole idea of always moving camera to create energy, emotion, and keep you as an audience very much involved in the movie. I had the luck to work with some really amazing directors, Dick Donner, John McTiernan, Paul Verhoeven, Ridley Scott, and these are all directors who really know exactly what they want. They know what the film should look like and what it has to represent, and what the power of the shot should be, and the power of the lighting. There's nothing worse on a set than a director who doesn't know what he wants to do. And I knew that on my first movie, I had to give, like a really sure feeling to the crew. You have to tell them exactly what you want. The more information you give them, the better they are. And if you don't tell what you want, or you don't know what you want, that's fine too, but then tell them, and then they can help you. And that's what I learned from those directors. When of course, there's definitely moments that all those directors had problems with, like, how do we do this scene, how do we do that scene? And then you ask, because that's why you hire your crew. That's why you hire the people you work with, the DPs, the art directors, production designers, the line producers, the effects coordinators, the stuntmen. That's why you need those people, and they all have amazing talents. And I think the more you use those people, the better a director you are. There's no way a director can do everything himself. A lot of the sounds actually that you hear in this sequence, which are fantastic. Steve Flick did the sound design. It's kind of animal sounds that are especially pigs and that we use that are distorted, deformed, and as like almost like the elevator is alive, like it's groaning. It's like moving. It becomes like a character.
Come on, let's go.
So I let it go quieter, then suddenly, bam. So you really go down with your sound level dramatically to make the effect of the very first gunshot like so loud that it almost shakes you back into reality. And it's like a really cool moment, I think, to really work with sound like that, using sound as a tension builder. A lot of the operating in this movie I did myself, because it was the only way for me to get even close to the actors to really see what they were doing, because I wanted to have a sense that the camera was really very direct and it was right in the face. The key reason that this scene is in the movie is to set up the relationship between Keanu's character, Jeff Daniels, and Joe Morton. It was very important, of course, that so for the audience to be able to like them better, to understand who and what they are and what they feel for each other, you have to have scenes that tells a little bit about their relationship and what they feel about each other. And that's the main goal of the sequence. It's actually in a movie that is for the rest full of action. This, of course, the only slow scene in the whole movie itself. But I think it's really necessary. You cannot, scenes like this you have to keep in, because you have to know what their characters are all about, and also get some humor in there. When I read the script originally and I found out obviously that the lead character in the movie is a bus. I said, oh my God, how can I possibly make a bus look interesting? How can I possibly make a movie about a bus that is basically slow moving vehicles that stop and go, that takes forever to get to speed? How can I ever make that exciting, and how can I ever achieve that it has, some energy to it? And then I realized it starts with casting, and I had to cast the bus as much as I had to cast the actors. And looking at like millions of buses, and I decided that the Santa Monica bus, actually the old type, was the best looking one in a way that it felt like this bus has been around. It's been around for a long time, and they look like just regular people, not fancy, nothing special. This is one of my favorite things too, is seeing action in reflection. I mean, and you see that quite regularly in the movie, and is that instead of those big frontal close-ups of explosions, which are normally and generally quite boring, I always try to combine them with the actors. In this case, with Dennis Hopper, with Keanu. Whatever happens, it's like you always get a sense that there's more in the shot than just a effect. It always is the actor, the character that's part of the effect, part of the scene. And even his scar, I mean, Keanu's scar, that has to be also, you have to cast all the things because it plays his big parts in the movie. You cannot just take any regular car. And this is our bus, the 2525. Again, casting Sandra was like the key thing in casting her was for me, would you believe that those people actually would take a bus? The problem is with a lot of actors, it's like, and especially big famous stars, they would never take a bus. They would drive limos. They probably have never seen an interior of a bus. And I needed to make sure that every person who was sitting in a bus, including Sandra, looked like or felt like it's this multiracial culture, represents that multiracial culture that is Los Angeles, and people that actually would go to their work in a bus, who really, would take it on a daily basis, and so it's like a common thing. Actually, this shot, of course, is way over the top, that that little piece of paper, but it totally sells exactly what it's all about. And I think it's like sometimes you have to do those shots that you think, oh my God, this is ridiculous. It's so over the top, it's so on the nose, but it totally works. Again, as you can see, this whole chase sequence, the camera is always moving along. It is amazing how we were able to do that. And the reason that we had to keep the camera moving is I wanted to keep the energy going in this movie non-stop. I didn't want to ever for it to let down, because the moment that would happen, I think it would take you out of the movie. And so wherever shot we have, even all the shots in the bus, the camera is kind of hanging on bungee cords to create some motion. This is done from the back of inside cars. This is from, of course, that's handheld inside. All the tricks that you had to use, actually what you saw there was a camera on the outside of a bus, is like use many different camera tricks to make the speed constant. Sometimes the bus, like when it went around that half circle, that off ramp, I think the most it went was 25 miles an hour. And to be able to control it, and that means that you have to do all kind of camera tricks by camera motion specifically, to kind of create the feeling that the bus is still going just over 50, and you undercrank the camera a little bit, but you have to be careful because if there's dialogue, you cannot do that. So quite often you use moving cameras, and the slower the bus goes, generally, as a rule, the faster the camera has to move or create motion in front of the camera, from the lens, to distract from the reality what you would see on the screen, so that it would never occur to an audience that that this bus might be only going maybe 10 miles or 15 miles, and that's what happened on a very regular basis. One of the ways, to get because we use multiple cameras all the time, is choreography. And every morning, basically, I had little toy cars that represented the bus, the cars around it, the police cars, this big truck, the helicopters, and try to figure out and tell everybody, including the stunt drivers, the special effects people, the stunt coordinator, where everybody had to be at a given time. And that was the only way for everybody to understand it, because otherwise it is so difficult, because we had so much going on a constant basis, that was the clearest way to express to everybody to really and understand right away without much time delay where to be and what to do at any given time. Sometimes when you make movies, you have so little time to think about everything because you have to move on a non-stop basis. You have to make a million decisions at any given time, especially on a movie like this, that it never occurred to me to do that. And of course, it wasn't in the script either, but I still would have thought it would have been much better. Again, those scenes you have to shoot with multiple cameras all the time because there's no way you can redo it. It would take a whole day to do a little scene like that, and in reality, we only had a few hours to do scenes like that. That's why the whole choreography was so incredibly important, that everybody knew exactly what to do at any given time. I was trying as much as possible, you cannot give every actor in the bus passenger like a complete scene because the movie would be 2.5 hours or more. But I still want to give just little vignettes that gave you a little bit of impression what those characters are about, so we could care for them. They're real people. They react and their emotions, and they're fear. They're afraid of it. They're afraid what's happening and what's going on, and it's happening to them.
Gets on my nerves. Gets on everybody.
The reason I was thinking about LAX because you could create all kinds of new dilemmas for them. Like for instance, this shot, the timing of the bus going crossing right at the moment that a big 747 takes off, and I needed a constant new energy, from freeway, airport. I couldn't let go, and it had to be relentlessly going on with creating new trouble, new problems, and new types of things they had to deal with. Like, for instance, like putting things like that, like the plane on the foreground, you increase the speed almost by 50% if you move the camera the same direction, and because in reality, of course, those buses cannot constantly go 50 miles an hour, like I said before. I mean, it's a helicopter shot. It's like, a lot of the things that, in reality, the shot went all the way to a close-up. And it's like always putting the bus in context to the outside world. It's never isolated. It's always like using the exterior and the interior combined.
Did you have any luck with the bomb?
Yeah, it didn't go off. Jeez.
Again, just trying to release the tension right away. The moment you have reached a kind of climactic scene, you have to instantly release it so you can build up to the next dramatic moment. Again, running cameras. This is also like a pretty cool shot where cars, it's all in one, where the cameras are falling really low with a Steadicam mode to create lots of energy within the sequence. It's always hard to choreograph a fight, especially a fight that has like really very restricted space and make it believable and so that people don't fall off and become silly. But I think we just were able in that limited space that we had to make like a pretty realistic looking fight scene. Again, you camouflage a lot of the effects, with having a handheld camera so that your attention doesn't always go and doesn't always focus on the effect itself, the plates. Of course, you're always tempted when you see a sequence like this, and thinking back at the beginning of the movie where he shot Jeff Daniels in the leg, will he do the same thing again? But of course, I didn't want that to happen. Of course, you'd never want to repeat yourself anyway. But this scene, of course, was all, that all the effects were very carefully storyboarded and choreographed because, it's again, you can do this one time. That's it. You have to, and hopefully it works in the very first take. And you use multiple cameras and multiple, plate cameras, but there's no choice. So it's all a matter of really careful pre-production, planning, choreography, and having like fantastic specialists around you. Like we had fantastic stunt coordinators, effects coordinators, miniature builders. We had a fantastic crew. I'm quite amazed actually how much we were able to achieve in a relatively short time. By really simply preparing it very carefully. Getting the right people in front and behind the camera. And really do your homework.